Welcome back to Newsday. Technology transfer is one of the principal benefits of bilateral relations between countries, regardless of the economic standing of the countries involved. And expatriate workers remain the major vehicle for not just exchange of ideas and development, but also the operational modalities necessary for such exchanges. In Nigeria, however, the presence of a growing number of so-called expatriate workers has become a huge source of concern because of their proven involvement in economic sabotage, of course, with the active connivance of Nigerian nationals and companies. Joining us now to further explain how this situation has continued to undermine the growth of local industries, facilitate the erosion of in-country services, as well as diminish the economy's capacity to create jobs, is Liborous Oshoma. He is a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
A very interesting topic you'll be discussing here. I'd just like to ask you, when it comes to bilateral relations in terms of technology transfer, we know that's crucial, but what are the factors that should precede getting into those bilateral relations, since we see that sabotage could be the end result in the long run?
Yeah, quickly, because of time. First and foremost, issues like this, you find out that most of these issues, especially technology transfer, are not issues that are domiciled here. And so what Nigeria, the government did, was to ensure that, in granting expatriate quotas to foreigners that are coming to work here, there is a rule that at least you have 3 or 4 or 5 Nigerians to understudy such expats. So at the end of the day, when the expat leaves, you have that technology, domicile here. You have people, Nigerians, who have learned from it, who can, in turn operate and carry out such technology. It happens everywhere, including as far back as when the Majakuta steel companies were built, Delta steel companies. You had the technical people come from Germany and Russia to, build this company. But eventually Nigerians took over because, these technologies were transferred. But today, what you have Chinese people selling rice in the market, flying expatriate quotas. You have people coming to lay pipes in Nigeria and then, brandishing expatriate quota. What the ministry, I must commend the Ministry of Interior here. What they did was to ensure they had technical partners, I think Manco Data. So they automated fully, completely the application and approval of the issuance of expatriate quota. But where the problem is the fact that there's what they call, it's because a combined effort from the ministry and then the immigration service, where there's what they call the combined expatriate resident permit and alien card. It is known as CERPAC. So after the issuance of expatriate quota to these companies, then they use those issuance to obtain CERPAC from immigration. That's where the problem is. The application and approval of the expatriate quota is completely automated by the ministry under the Citizens and Business Department, driven by both the PAMSEC and the director in that sector. But today, you now have a situation where the immigration will issue CERPAC without expatriate quota. If I am on an international platform, requests from immigration, the expatriate quota approval used in issuing CERPAC from 2018 to date, you will marvel. So, and what that does is you limit the opportunities of Nigerians to understudy and diminish the technology transfer ability. And then in some cases, when Nigerians are supposed to be understudying, when they now come for reissuance, you hear names like a situation where you're supposed to have 5 names. You see one name will be juggled 5 times. Let's say Niyi Olatunde Moshood. That same name, Moshood Olatunde Niyi. Niyi Moshood Olatunde, one person. And so there's also clamor by some of us who are, stakeholders in this department to say, look, let's begin to add the name of these persons to the application and approval process. Also, let the minister, you have automated the application process. Why don't you also, and you have automated issuance of passports, why don't you automate the issuance of CERPAC so that both platforms can relate with each other? So you don't need, to begin to issue CERPAC manually where you are issuing your passports, via automation. You are issuing expatriate quota via automation. So the missing link here now is the issuance of CERPAC. And so if you continue to issue CERPAC manually, Nigerians are consistently going to have, these opportunities, lost this opportunity where technology that ordinarily ought to be transferred to them, it's not there. And then you have people, laborers coming, flying expatriate quotas because they have been issued CERPAC by, immigration. Recently, we are at the National Assembly, where a Nigerian company took another Nigerian company to the National Assembly before the committee on, committee on local content, that the jobs that Nigerians can do and do well, it's been taken over by foreigners, Chinese, and, laying pipe, bricklayer. And somebody even said, oh, look, you are going too far. That's pure water selling, pure water manufacturing in Nigeria, that this is a business that everybody can do, behind their backyard. That foreigners are brandishing expatriate quota to do this business, and yet we are complaining that there are no jobs. We also complain that there's insecurity, our borders are porous. So if we cannot even man the borders, the international borders, where our international routes via airports and seaport, where because we are issuing manual and fake CERPAC, how do you now intend to man the land borders? That's basically, the challenge here.
Interesting perspective on the technical details there, Liborous. Now, we've seen scenarios where Nigerians are exposed to the same level of training, if not better. Then why would you have these expatriates come in the first place? And when you look at scenarios like that in their chosen professions, and they're not given as much opportunities as they would their, foreign counterparts. So how would you describe that narrative? You have Nigerians that actually do the job better, but there's still a question mark. People would rather have those expatriates, unquote, come in.
Thank you, Neil. You know why this thing is happening? Why it is that way? Take, for example, you have a company who would have expatriate quota approval for 400 expats. In the real sense, they are using only 20 or 100. And then in some cases, some of these people, they are brandishing as experts and not experts in the proper sense. So when you have such persons, and then you have Nigerians that are capable of doing this, and then what happens is, if it is so easy for you to bring in anybody and label the person expert, you naturally want to diminish the capacity of your own people, because you feel, look, after all, you're a black man like me, you're a Nigerian like me, so if I can bring in anybody, even somebody who is not an expert, and label him expert, because there is a loophole from the immigration angle where he can get documentations, then why should I want to engage you? And then they feel that they are doing Nigeria a favor by giving a Nigerian that opportunity that is even doing better. Let me quickly give you an example with the telecommunication industry. At a point, most of these big telcos said Nigerians can install microwaves. That Nigerians can install microwaves, so they need to, award some of this contract to experts. And then, but yet, when we interrogated some of the engineers, our local engineers, we discovered that you have more than enough Nigerian engineers who are installing, even microwaves far better than their foreign partner. And then you find out that some of these foreign partners that are brought in, all in the name of experts, are actually understudying the Nigerians. And then what now happens? Because of corruption, you bring in an expert, you say this man is an expert, like a question. This man is an expert, so you pay him times 3. In the real sense, what that man is doing for you, he takes that money as his salary, he transfers it abroad, and domicile your own percentage in a foreign account for you. And then keep what's, ordinary, the agreement that you have. And so in that case, on paper, he's an expert. But in the real sense, you just brought him on board, procure fake CERPAC for him, and then brandish him as an expert. Meanwhile, he's involved seriously in money laundering. Because you've tagged him as an expert, nobody's understood, nobody is looking at the books. That's where that problem is. That's why for some of us who are watchers, who have consistently followed these activities right from when Abamoro was minister in this department, that we feel that another thing that the ministry should do, when you have competent hands that have are innovative, this idea of let's transfer this routine transfer, the ministry should jettison it for the purpose of ensuring that we, at the end of the day, credibility is allowed to take root in such department. Because it is easy for us to say, oh, civil servants, evil servants. But you have some who are very credible, who come with innovation. But they start that innovation, midway, the head of service will transfer them to another ministry. And another director or PAMSEC will come, who knows next to nothing about that. And so that process is hanging. And so that's why consistently you find out that a ministry can function better than they are if only we embrace technology. But some of the directors and PAMSEC will start a process and then they are transferred out. And then the next man that comes, he's looking for how to curry favor or to even transfer such a contract to cronies who knows next to nothing about it. So that's one of the bane of our society. So we should also encourage, when you start a process, allow that process to be seen through by the person who initiated it. And then also, same way, you can transfer the technology around those people who works in the ministry. And then, lastly, ensure that you don't just start a process, automation process, in one aspect, and the other process that is supposed to interact with that automation process is done manually. So you leave loophole. That's why there is that lacuna. And as I speak to you now, do you know that in Nigeria presently, quickly, 4,000, you have 4,000 expatriate quotas that have expired. But rather than go back to the Ministry of Interior, the Business and Citizens and Business Department to renew, because it's automated, they will rather just go obtain CERPAC. And when you obtain CERPAC, the immigration will tell you, please, when you want to renew, don't go back to the ministry, just come back. They will issue that paper for you. So that's the challenge.
There's the issue of connivance.
Indeed. We have about a minute left, and I'd just like to ask if there are any consequences for Nigerian nationals and companies who are involved in connivance that facilitates sabotage, and if there aren't any, what would you recommend? One
of the big challenges, one of the seminars I attended, a stakeholder seminar I attended at Sheraton Hotel, one immigration officer said the big problem that they have is enforcement. When they go out to enforce such compliance, and then you're in an office, the next thing you get a call from your boss, where are you? I'm in so-so place. He would ask you, who sent you? Will you get back to the office? Because there are no consequences. I would want to ensure, I would want to advise that the ministry should have an enforcement unit. Not just the immigration having an enforcement unit. There should be an enforcement unit from the ministry also to interact with the immigration to ensure that these rules are complied with. And those that are not, fall short of the compliance should be shown the way out, just the way they repatriate Nigerians who are illegal alien abroad. So also people who have been seen to procure, the consequences are that they should be repatriated from Nigeria. But you cannot repatriate them when there are no enforcement, when there are no monitoring, proper monitoring and enforcement. This immigration has been consistently shouting that the only ones saddled with the responsibility of enforcement because they know that their process is not automated. But the ministry should also have an enforcement unit where most of these people, enforcement are carried out, and then these persons are arrested, are shown the way out of Nigeria. Recently, up north, do you know that some Nigerians were complaining that their jobs were taken over by a company that was working for the federal government, and most of the Chinese people that they have there, that they labeled experts, were not experts. They just locked them up in a place and, cheap labor. So there should be rules without enforcement amounts to work done zero.
All right.
So the only way out of it is to ensure that the ministry carries out its enforcement to the latter. And then the minister makes sure it let the automation process, be seen through to the end. You have passport, you have a expatriate quota, and then the middle, which is CERPAC, it's a manual.
Very well said. Liborous Oshoma, lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Thank you for your analysis as well.
My pleasure.